still Hustle Daily. What's going on, Hustle Nation? Welcome back to another video. This is going to be a long one, guys, so make sure you grab some popcorn and a drink. Unfortunately, this lady was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis to be undiagnosed 15 years later. That is crazy. So apparently she went through all the treatments and everything, and to find out like 15 years later she did not have this chronic autoimmune disease. All right, so we about to get right into it. Like I said, this is a long one, so make sure you smash that like button if you haven't done so already. I'm very sorry this happened to this lady. Hopefully you guys have not gone through something like that. Now, if you don't know what multiple sclerosis is, hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. It's a chronic autoimmune disease where the body's immune system mistakenly attacks the protective sheath covering nerve fibers in the brain and spinal cord. So this definitely sounds like it's something very, very serious. Got to be careful with the doctors, man. That's why, you know, it's good to get multiple opinions and stuff sometimes. Like, I had broke my wrist last August 2024, and they wanted to put some screws in my wrist, right? And I ended up not doing that. I ended up getting a cast put on, but it was crazy because one doctor, you know, and they were colleagues. So one doctor said, "Oh yeah, I think it'll be, you know, we need to do it." You know what I'm saying? Because that bone, I broke my what the heck is that bone called? It's the smallest bone, like one of the smallest bones in your body. I broke it, and they said they need to put some screw to attach it back together. But I end up being in the cast, and everything's good to go. But one doctor said it, and the other doctor agreed with him, and I'm just like, you know. So I'm just like, you know. But I ended up being in the cast because I had caught COVID. So, you know, I didn't, you know, they can't do surgery if you got COVID. So thank God. My wrist is fine, by the way. My wrist is fine. You know what I'm saying? I still got to work on my bending. But like I said, I'm sorry this happened to this lady. Make sure y'all like the video. Make sure y'all follow me on Instagram at the top of the screen. And we're about to go ahead and get into it, man. I'm very, very sorry this happens. And damn, man, hopefully, you know, none of you guys have went through this ever, you know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and listen to her story. Let's get right into it. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in and rock with me. Let's go.
I never thought I would have to use this platform to do a story time. But in 2009, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I was told by a neurologist that ultimately I would die from multiple sclerosis. I was also told that because I was African American, I would need to be treated aggressively. I started on medications, including injections 3 times a week. Over the last 15 and a half years, I have aggressively been treated, which ultimately led to me having to have 2 brain surgeries. A year ago, I had a neurologist tell me I don't have MS. I never had MS. And I sit here today officially undiagnosed and 1 year off of all medications, only to be told there's no justice for you. Sorry, that happened. Well, the devil is a lie. God did not keep me through all those chemicals, all those treatments, the 2 brain surgeries, just for these doctors to get away with what has happened to me for the past 15 and a half years. I am going to fight for justice for myself, for people who have died and family members thought they died because of a diagnosis that they probably didn't even really have, and nobody questioned it. If I had died in the last 15 years, my family would have assumed she died from multiple sclerosis. But here's the thing, I never called it multiple sclerosis. I always called it my savior. Yeah. You may not know who I am, but by the time I'm done giving this story time, you will know whose I am. I am not going to stop until I get justice. I don't know anything about going viral. I don't know anything about algorithms, but I know God. And I know that this was a fixed fight from day one. So I am going to tell my story. And Friday, March the 28th, it would officially be 1 year when I walked in that doctor's office and my life was turned upside down. So I'm asking you to share this. I'm asking you to hear my story. I'm asking you that if you know of any way for me to get my voice heard, to please reach out to me. Because from today, starting today, I am going to do a story time. And by Friday, I will give you all the answers to what took place these past 15 and a half years. Part 1 on how I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 15 and a half years ago, only to be undiagnosed and told I never had MS. September 2009, I was at work, and it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were getting ready to sit down and do documentation. A coworker had gone out earlier that day for lunch and said, hey, I stopped and grabbed some cookies. Would you like a cookie? And I'm like, sure. I sat down and I began to do my paperwork. I opened the cookie, and the moment I bit the cookie, it was one of those M&M candy cookies. The moment I bit the cookie, my entire right side of my face went numb. And I'm like, I can't feel my face. You know, I just bit this cookie, and I think maybe I got a little sugar in my tooth, because from my head to my chin, completely numb, but only on the right side. So my coworkers are like, oh my God, you know, that could be Bell's palsy, and oh my God, you could be having a stroke. And so I'm like, let me make a phone call and get an appointment to the dentist. Luckily, I was about 30 minutes away from my dentist's office, and I called and told them what had happened, and they said, come on in. So I went to the dentist's office. I got there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When I got to the dentist, they did x-ray. He did a complete mouth check, and he's like, no, we find nothing, but you know, this is concerning. You know, you might want to call your primary. The whole time I'm like, call my primary because I bit a cookie. Okay. So again, my primary happened to be 15 minutes away. Called the primary in the parking lot of the dentist's office, and he's like, come on in. I'm like, okay. So I go to the doctor's office. Get to the doctor's office. This guy has been my primary since I was 18 years old. So I'm going to listen, you know, whatever he tells me. And I get there. He's like, okay, what did the dentist say? He said, you know, nothing, did x-rays, come see you. He's like, okay. So told me to tell him the story. I told him. He goes, hold on, let me call a friend of mine. He's a neurologist. And I'm like, you're calling a neurologist because I bit a cookie and lost feeling in my face? Okay. So he called his neurologist friend, and he got me an appointment. The appointment was scheduled for the next day. Go to the neurologist, and when I get to the neurologist, he's like, tell me what happened. And I'm like, well, I bit the cookie, went to the dentist, said no, went to the primary, said nothing he knew. Coworker said it could be a stroke, could be Bell's palsy. He said, what would make you think that? I'm like, I don't know what made them think that. I guess because my face is numb, but they're just reaching, and I was reaching, but we don't know. He said, okay, well, sounds like we need to get an MRI. Okay. So I'm like, okay, no problem. Go back out to the desk. Get to the desk. He's originally said it's going to take about 2 weeks to get you in. I get to the desk. Secretary says, hey, we have a cancellation for tomorrow morning. Would you like to go tomorrow? I'm like, absolutely, no problem. She scheduled the appointment. He said, I will reach out to you in about a week and a half with the results of the MRI. I said, okay. The next day I get the MRI. After the MRI, my husband and I went to Red Lobster. We're sitting in Red Lobster, and my phone rings. When my phone rings, it's the neurology office. First thing I said is, there's something wrong. He said he would call me in a week and a half. He is calling me the same day of my MRI. He said, hi, I have your test results back from your MRI this morning. I need you to come into the office tomorrow morning at 7:30. So now I'm panicking, because I'm like, wait a minute. The office doesn't even open, and you want me to come in at 7:30? Okay, we'll be there. Get to the neurology office the next morning at 7:30. He takes us in his office, and this is where my nightmare began. So as I said, at 7:30, we arrived to the doctor's office. We went into the doctor's personal office, and he turned his monitor around and he said, "This is your brain. This is your lesion. It is at the top of your brain stem. This is why your face is numb. You have multiple sclerosis. This is what ultimately you will die from." And he said it just like that. There is no cure for this. However, because multiple sclerosis runs rampant in African Americans, we're going to have to treat you aggressively, which means we're going to have to start you on quite a bit of meds, including a injection 1 time a week. I'll have the nurse set this injection up to be delivered. It comes straight from the pharmaceutical company. It's not something that you can get at the pharmacy. It will come on ice and you will get a month's supply, which is 4 shots. He said, "I also want you to come in next week for your first round of steroid infusions. We will place an IV in your arm. You will keep the IV in your arm. We will wrap it up. And then you'll come back 2 days and do an infusion. They're about 1.5 hours long each. And we'll take the IV out your arm on the 3rd day. Do you have any questions?" "Yes." So you're saying I'm dying?" "No, you're not dying today, but yes, this is what you will die from. Ultimately, you will die from multiple sclerosis. It is at the top of your brain stem. If it is to get bigger, you could be blind, you could become paralyzed, anything can happen. So we need to get on this right away." "Okay." So you can head out to the desk, schedule your appointment for your infusions next week, and then follow up with me in 3 weeks. No problem. Shake his hand, go out to the desk, schedule the appointment. Walk outside, get to my car, open the passenger door, and then I just fell to the ground crying. I started crying. I was hysterical. I couldn't breathe. I had just been given a death sentence. So I thought. I called my mom and I tell my mom what the doctor had just said. My husband's trying to console me, but yet he doesn't know what to say. He's shocked as well. I tell my mom, she's shocked, she's crying. I call my twin sister and she's like, "Oh, wow, this is crazy." But she was so positive. She didn't cry on the phone with me. She was like, "God got you, you got this, we're gonna beat this. Whose report are you gonna believe? We're gonna trust God." And I'm like, you're right. I'm saying you're right, but at the same time, I'm saying I am going to die. I can't feel the right side of my face and I'm gonna die. But I'm not gonna die. It was weird. I can't really explain it. So I go home and my next thing is to figure out how am I going to talk to my children about my new diagnosis. I had children in elementary school, middle school, and high school. I didn't know much about multiple sclerosis myself, so there wasn't a lot I could tell them. I was just going to let them know that I had gone to the doctor and that I would be on some new medications. And we would just have to take it day by day because I didn't know what life was going to look like. So I went for my first round of infusions the following week. It was horrible. My mouth tastes like metals. It was pure steroids. It was horrible. I developed a prednisone phase. I had insomnia. I was eating like crazy. And I just didn't know what to do with myself. I called my job and I took a few weeks off because I needed to know, what is all of this going to look like? I had to pick up 7 prescriptions from the pharmacy, which were all in pill form. And then I received the injections that the doctor was talking about. I started to inject on Fridays because I didn't work the weekend. Some of the side effects was flu-like symptoms, body chills is what the paperwork said. So I would inject on Friday evenings to allow myself time to kind of get used to the injection. The first 2 shots were okay. I didn't feel much, not much at all. The third one, I was pretty sick. Flu-like symptoms, could hardly get out the bed, could hardly move for about 2 days. The 4th injection, I was sick. I was sick. Called the office. They're like, take NyQuil, you know, any medication that deals with flu-like symptoms. So I'm like, okay. So the next injection, I took the NyQuil. It kind of helped, but not a lot. Within 3 months of injecting, I was getting sicker and sicker. I had gone back to work. I had tried to, you know, go back to a normal life, you know, thinking that this would pass. Called my neurologist and I'm like, hey, I noticed that, you know, my body is hurting a lot more during the day. You know, on the days that I don't inject, my body is killing me. And he's like, oh, it'll get better, you know. So 3 to 4 months, it was only getting worse. So I called the neurology office and I said, we need to, you know, talk. I can't do this. You know, I have a job, I have children, I have a husband. I can't come home from work and cook, clean, like I'm not able to function. He goes, well, you know, we can do another round of steroids and we can think about increasing or changing your injection. So I'm like, okay. So I want you guys to know that my very first appointment was in his office at 7:30 in the morning. So there was no one there. This next appointment that I had with him was 11 o'clock in the morning. And I walked into the doctor's office and I saw people in wheelchairs. I saw people with canes, walkers. I even saw people pushing wheelchairs with their mouth. And I turned around and I walked out. And I said, there's no way this is what I have to look forward to. No. So what I just saw is ultimately what's gonna happen to me. And I freaked out. So I freaked out and I went to my car and I started crying. And I could not believe that that is what I was going to be looking forward to. So I began to pray. And I'm like, Lord, you're going to have to give me a double portion of strength because I got to be strong for my kids. You have to give me complete healing because I know I have a job to do in the ministry. Again, I was very active in my church. And I just kept saying, God, you know, it's your will. But I need a double portion of strength. And so I go back in the office and I go in the room with the doctor and I say to him, like, okay, how long before, you know, I'm in a wheelchair? And he looked me dead in my face and said, you will be in a wheelchair before your next birthday. Okay. I'll be 36 years old in a wheelchair. He goes, you'll never be able to have children anymore. You know, do not get pregnant. If you were to give birth, you will die because it will be too much trauma to your body. I said, okay, we're going to continue on this medication path. You just started, but we are going to add more infusions. Okay. Over the next 5-6 years, I was hospitalized at least 8 times a year. At least 8 times a year. And every time I was hospitalized, the term was, you are having a MS flare. This is a multiple sclerosis flare. This is a flare. It was so much of a flare, I ultimately had to resign from my job and apply for Social Security. I couldn't drive. I could barely walk. My kids were bathing me. Now we're going to 3 times a week injections. Now we're going to every 6-month infusions. Constantly in the hospital. I developed diabetes. I developed a heart rate baseline at 114. I developed migraines. My life was changing before my eyes. But the one thing was, I wasn't in a wheelchair by my birthday. I was not in a wheelchair by my birthday. I continued to trust God, and I continued to take the medicine. One day I woke up and I couldn't see. My eyesight was gone. And once again, I panicked. It gets worse, you guys. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you. Oh, my soul, rejoice. Take joy, my King, in what you hear. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. This is one of the songs I used to often sing when I was admitted into the hospital. Growing up as a child in the church, I used to hear the mothers sing Amazing Grace and Hold to His Hand. And last night I was lying in bed and an old hymn came to me. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never dying soul to save that fitted for the sky. I'm going to finish this race, you guys. And I'm going to do it with boldness, and I am going to do it with Christ. Telling this story is not easy because knowing now that I never had MS, thinking about all the things that happened to me is painful. One of the questions or statements that was made was to get a second opinion or a third opinion. The backstory to that is that the doctor who diagnosed me, he was only my neurologist for 6 years. And he moved to another practice, so I was sent to another neurologist who reviewed all of my medical records and said, yep, you have MS. And this neurologist added another injection. 5 years later, he retired, and I got a new neurologist who went right along with, let me give you another MRI. Came back and said, you know what? I've been looking at all your medical records and I looked at your MRI, you know, we need to change this medication. So in the course of 15 years, I literally had over 20 neurologists who looked at my documentation and continued to aggressively treat me. This includes the 5 neurologists who all were in the same practice that I was transferred to, one after the other, all saying the same thing. When I went to the hospital and the neurology team would come and they would say, we reviewed your chart and we decided we want to do this or we want to do that. When you have that many doctors all saying you have MS, this is a flare, but we're going to treat you. I remember one day getting to the emergency room and I was in so much pain. I begged those doctors. I said, whatever you do, save my life. I have children. I have a husband. And I remember getting down on my knees on the side of the bed because the next morning, my daughter was going to be graduating from high school. And they told me I was not going to be able to attend. And I called on the name of God. And I said, Lord, I need to move the goalposts. I need to get out of here. I need to see my daughter walk that stage. 3 hours before graduation, they discharged me. My daughter was the MC for her 12th grade graduation. She was graduating with distinction. And I sat there and my daughter read her welcome address. And in her welcome address, she said, my entire high school life, my mother has suffered from multiple sclerosis. But she has been here for me every step of the way. And she began to cry. And she said, my mom was discharged from the hospital this morning just so she could see me walk the stage. And you guys, I cried so hard because I didn't know my daughter was going to say that. And the entire room stood up. The entire auditorium stood up and clapped. There were so many moments like this one that I went through over the past 15 years that I know it had to be nobody but God. And as I continue to tell this story, I told you, you may not know who I am, but you will know whose I am. So I wake up and I can't see anything. So I'm yelling, I'm yelling for whoever to come into the room. And so my husband comes into the room and I'm telling him, like, I can't see. I can't see. I need you to call the doctor's office. So he gets the neurology office on the phone and they're asking me, like, okay, what happened? I'm like, nothing. I went to bed. I had just injected that night with the medication and I woke up, no vision. And they're like, okay, well, that's typical, you know, you can wait it out, you know, for about 15 minutes, call us back, or come in and we can immediately start infusions because that's what we do. We try to boost your immune system. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming. I'm not waiting. I'm coming in. So my husband gets me there and they start the infusions. Maybe 45 minutes into the infusion, I can see, but it's very blurry, very blurry. I did not regain my full vision for 5 days. After 5 days, I was able to see. They sent me to the eye doctor, and I had an eye exam at the time to see, like, okay, is this anything dealing with my retina or my vision, or because I had diabetes, did I start developing vision issues because of the diabetes, which was brought on by the prednisone? Turned out no. I wear glasses now, but then I wasn't. I didn't have any vision issues. And so finally regained, my full vision. The conversation came up again. Okay, let's talk medication. Let's see what we could do, so this doesn't happen again. So I started doing prednisone tapers at home. Now, being on that amount of prednisone, I had gotten up to almost 300 pounds. So imagine what that does to your mental. You are in constant pain. You are now almost 300 pounds. You can barely do your daily chores, yet alone, understand, even feel good about yourself. And this is what I was facing. But I just kept pressing on. I had some awesome men of God, women of God praying for me. Family support is so important. Now, by this time, I'm going to see another neurologist and another PA, but they're in the same building. The doctor I was seeing was no longer there. I found out at my next appointment that I had to get another doctor. So I just was like, oh, okay, well, you guys can let me see whoever is accepting patients in this practice, because I had been there and I felt like they were on it. I felt like, okay, every time I had a flare, every time something happened to me, I'm getting the best care, because every time I call, they is on it, and I might be in pain and I may spend some time in the hospital, but I'm a bounce back, I'm a bounce back because they are attentive. No, I never saw my actual MRI. I saw the notes from the MRIs. And each time I would have a major flare, they would order an MRI. Each time they came back, they added another medication, because they were saying, okay, now this lesion is getting bigger. That's why your eyesight went, but the prednisone brought it back down. So now we got to find a medication to put you on to keep it that way. Okay, no problem. I'm all for it, because again, they attentive. I'm getting in my appointments right away. When I get to the hospital, the hospital's corresponding with my neurologist, and it's like, we got a team going here. So I'm like, okay. So one day, start feeling major pain in the right side of my face. And I'm talking, this was different. This was a different kind of pain. This was a pain that nothing touched. I don't care what they gave me. It did not go away. It didn't go away. If I brushed my teeth, it hurt. If I blinked my eyes, it hurt. If I turned my head, it hurt. If I put an earring, this was a different kind of pain, okay? So now I'm like, oh, here we go. This is what they've been talking about. The MS is flared to the point now where it's real bad. Man. So I'm like, okay, let me call and get into the neurology office. So I get in, and they're like, I have to send you over to a specialist, because this sounds like, you're developing this disease called trigeminal neuralgia, which is brought on by MS. So when you have MS, sometimes you develop other neurological diseases. Okay, so what do we do? Because this is painful and I can't take it. Nothing is working. I mean, I'm screaming, I'm hollering. I was falling out. My kids coming home from school, my husband coming home. I'm passed out on the floor. Don't even know I'm on the floor. I'm in the closet, passed out. Don't know how long I've been down there. I mean, my life was being flipped upside down. And now I'm told, you got to go see a different kind of neurologist now because this has gotten real serious. So as I said, they told me I needed to go see a different neurologist. So they scheduled the appointment. I get to this neurologist. This particular neurologist specialized in many different types of neurological diseases, but trigeminal neuralgia was one of the main things that he specialized in. And we sat in his office, talked. He said to me, I've had a chance to look over your medical history. And man, you know, have had quite a journey. This disease that you have is typical of people who have MS and who tends to be on a lot of medication. Over the years, different things begin to develop. There's a surgery, but it is a brain surgery. This surgery is not too invasive now because we've come a long way and we have a different way that, you know, we can do this surgery. So I'm like, okay, so that's it. There's nothing else. You just gonna operate on my brain is what you're saying. He's like, that's the only way. He's like, you know, this could correct the problem, but I am going to tell you that sometimes people have this procedure and it is good for a year. Sometimes they come back every 5 years and we have to repeat it. Sometimes every 6 years, sometimes in 6 months. But it's a surgery that, you know, we can perform. And I'm like, okay. He's like, now, there's 2 ways we could do this. We can shave your head and cut your hair off in the front and open up your head the old-fashioned way. Or we can cut 3 holes right here in your face and go up to your brain. So I'm looking at him and I'm like, let me call you back. Let me schedule another appointment because I gotta go home and think this thing over, you know. And so he said, okay, I understand. So I went home and I'm like, okay, you mean to tell me you want to go through my face up to my brain? Now, we all know brain surgery is scary. Anytime somebody open your head, anything can happen, you know. So I'm just like, okay, is the pain is painful, but is it something I could tolerate, or should I just really have this brain surgery? Well, this pain was only getting worse, y'all. It wasn't getting no better. So I'm like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to go through the face. All right. They scheduled a surgery. We go for the day of surgery. Same day now. I wake up after going, and the doctor's like, hey, we weren't able to do the surgery. I'm like, huh? What? He's like, well, the operating room that we had you in, it didn't have the x-ray machine we needed for your face. And every time we got here, we got stuck. So we couldn't get up to your brain. So we had to stop. He says, so I had to stop the procedure and we're going to reschedule. So now I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, okay, these people playing in my face, literally playing in my face. And I'm like, but it hurt and I need this to stop. And he said, this is the only way it's going to stop. So to explain the pain, it felt like I was being electrocuted like every 15 minutes. I was like you could be sitting there and it didn't matter where you was, restaurant, church, it didn't matter. That's how painful it was. And it was hitting like all of a sudden. It was unexpected. You did not see it coming. So scheduled it, go back for the second time. And this was in a week's time. And he was successful. It happened. Okay, so now the recovery process. The recovery process was really bad. Like really bad. Like I couldn't sleep for like 4 nights because it was just so painful. And now I'm like, what did they do? Like, what did these people do to my brain? Because my head is killing me. And I'm calling the office like, yeah, something's not right. I think y'all messed up. I think something's wrong. And I ended up like one night having like 45 minutes of like pain that I thought I was gonna die from. Like serious pain. And then boom, it went away. Just like that. Never had another pain in that side of my head at all. Like it went away. It disappeared. So now I'm like, he fixed me. All right. So now I just got to deal with the body pain and the MS. And then it gets worse. So after the brain surgery, we went to Montgomery, Alabama. It was the first time I had traveled, actually, since being diagnosed. And before the whole computer where you could log in and see your medical records and stuff, when I actually first got diagnosed in 2009, I started journaling. And I would keep notes on everything, like what I took, the time I took it, and if it gave me a reaction, what changed, when, never knowing that these little journals, I got these little books, would come in handy. And we went to Montgomery and I took my journal with me. Once we arrived, I was okay for about 4 hours. And then I started to feel some pain. So I'm like, oh, okay. It's the heat, you know. They always said when you get hot, you know, your body responds. So I'm like, okay, maybe because it's so hot, it's different temperature. And it just kept getting worse, and it kept getting worse, and it kept getting worse. And my husband like, well, you know, it was a long ride. Now it could just be the ride. I'm like, nah, that's a little different. You know, I need some medical attention. So I get to the hospital. Now I'm in what I consider full-blown flare. I cannot get out of pain. I couldn't get comfortable. So the doctors are like, you know, what's your medical history? So I'm telling them, I happen to have a journal. This particular journal only had like a month worth of data, but this had data since 2009. So I'm telling them everything. And now that I look back, these doctors kept coming to me like, so you have multiple sclerosis and you got diagnosed in 2009. Okay, so and what kind of treatment are you on? So I'm telling them. And in the meantime, they decide to give me an IV with some morphine to get me comfortable. So I'm getting comfortable. And they're coming back, and he's like, okay, we got a neurologist coming down, and, you know, he wants to talk to you. Because we're really not sure how to treat you, is basically what they were saying. We don't know what to do. So he comes down, and he's questioning now. So what was your first, you know, your first sign of multiple sclerosis? I'm looking at him like, okay, sir, look, we ain't got time to go through all that. I'm out of town. I need you to get me right so I could go. He's asking me these questions about what I had for my first med. Just questions I wasn't used to. So I responded and said, listen, if you don't know how to treat me, reach out to my neurologist and he can tell you what it is that he gives me when I have this type of flare. It's in my medical records. I can't think of the cocktail, but I'm sure if you call them, he'll tell you. So he's like, okay, that's what we're going to do. Took him like 2 hours. Finally, he came back. He's like, we spoke with your neurologist. He told us to give you this. We're going to give you this cocktail and send you on your way. Okay. And they did just that. Gave me everything that I would typically get here, which was basically an infusion, but it have certain medications in it to kind of give me a jump start. So they give it to me and I was fine. But once I got back home, I was like, yeah, nah, I'm never traveling again, because I don't got time for doctors not to know how to treat me. You know, I can't do it. So after being home for a few days, I started getting sick again. And then this was an everyday thing. Every day, every day, every day. Until I started getting to the point where I could not control my bowels. I couldn't control my bladder. And I'm like, what is going on? So call the neurology office and I tell them what's going on. Now, mind y'all, I am a young married young lady. I have kids. This was not pleasing, okay? This was embarrassing. It was hurtful, to say the least, to see what I was going through right in front of my family. They were very supportive and very loving, but again, as a person, you looking at yourself and you feel like you are deteriorating. And so now the neurologist is like, okay, yeah, you know, we downhill now, you know. It won't be long. No, won't be long. So we're going to give you, you know, we're going to switch now and we're going to put you on this injection. And this injection, it should kind of give you, you know, a little bit more comfort and, you know, maybe, you know, add a few more years to your life. Okay. So I'm in the bed one day and now I can't walk. Can't get up, can't do nothing. I mean, started a new injection. My kids bathing me in the bed. My husband bathing me in the bed. My sister coming over. My mother coming over. After about 2 weeks of that, I got one of my journals and I started writing my own obituary. I wrote my own obituary. And I remember 2 of my kids coming in the room. And they're like, Mom, what you doing? You watching TV? I said, no, I'm just sitting here journaling, you know, writing down some stuff. And they're like, what you writing? You know, what you writing about? I'm nothing. I didn't want to show them because they were young, you know. They didn't understand that. So my daughter, she grabs the book and she threw it. She threw it at me and she come out the room. And about 15 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my mother. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. She like, no, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. She's like, your daughter just called me. And I started crying. Why are you writing your obituary? She said. Why? And I'm like, Ma, I just felt like I needed to get it out the way. She like, listen, let me tell you something. You shake this mess off. Like, we not doing that. No, cut it out. And I'm like, you don't know how I feel. Like, you don't know what this feels like. You don't understand the journey. I'm tired of my kids, you know, watching me suffer like this. And it's just I'm preparing myself. I gotta prepare myself. And my mother was like, stop it. And I mean, stop it now. She didn't say it in them words. She put some colorful language in there. But she like, we don't give up. We not giving up. Like, you've come too far to give up. And so I want you to stop. I want you to shake this off. We're going to figure this thing out. But do not sit in that bed and give up. Don't do it. I'm not going to let you. And I'm like, okay. So I began to, instead of writing, you know, my obituary, I started writing sermons. I started getting in the Word and I started writing sermons. And God touched my body and He healed my body. And I started to speak on Sundays at church. And I started to feel good about myself. I started feeling positive. I just was thanking God for his amazing grace and just how far he had brought me. And the more I praised, the more the devil began to fight me. So in 2018, the pain returned in my head. So I reached out to the neurologist who had performed the surgery in 2016. So the operation lasted 2 years. And the disease again was called trigeminal neuralgia. And I was told that multiple sclerosis often causes this disease to develop. And so I met with the neurologist who performed the surgery in 2016. And he was like, one of the options is we can go in on the left side and do the surgery this time. And I think that you'll be a good candidate for it. And you may never need the surgery again if we do the other side. So I prayed about it and I was like, okay. Because again, I was in a lot of pain. I'm talking a lot of pain. So he performed the surgery. The recovery was the same. It was painful, but it didn't last long. So, you know, I just kind of continued to take my medications. I still was in and out of the hospital for what they called MS flares. And then I had to schedule a follow-up with the neurology office that I had been with since 2009. When I called the neurology office, she said, do you have the same insurance? And I'm like, no, I switched jobs. So my health insurance has changed. And I told her what I had, and she said, we don't take that. So I'm like, yeah, but I've been coming here since 2009. I know y'all got to take, make an exception. And she was like, unfortunately, we can't, this practice does not take that insurance. I'm like, so what do I do? She was like, you need to contact your primary, and your primary will have to fill your prescriptions for your MS until you can get a new neurologist. So I was like, okay, this is going to be crazy because I've been here for all these years. So I wasn't looking forward to it because, again, I have been in this practice for so many years. And I felt like their attentiveness, their willingness to, seek out other medications was just them treating me and giving me the best care. So I went to the primary. She gave me a referral to a new neurologist. When I called the office for the new neurologist, it was a 4-month wait. So my primary said, okay, I'll write the prescriptions until you can get in to your first appointment. And this is when it got real. So I called and scheduled the appointment in October of 2023. I could not get in to see the neurologist until March of 2024. And it was a regular day. I was at work. Typically, if, I was going to go and see a neurologist and we had to make decisions, I would always take my husband with me. But I was just going to do a quick meet and greet with my new neurologist. So I went on my own. And I left work and I got to the office and they took me in the room, So I'm anticipating I'll be here about 15 minutes, Give a little backstory. She's had 3 months to read over all my medical records. So the doctor walks in and she's like, hi, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. How are you? And she's like, okay, so tell me a little bit about, your MS. And so I started telling her, in 2009, I was at work. I bit a cookie. My face went numb. I went through that whole spiel. So she said, okay. So what's going on with your eyesight? I'm like, what do you mean what's going on with my eyesight? Your vision. Tell me about your vision. I'm like, you mean today? Like, what's wrong with my eyesight today? Nothing. So she's still looking at me, and she goes, can you give me a little bit more backstory on the surgeries you had? I said, yeah. The neurologist said I had developed trigeminal neuralgia, and I had to have the surgeries because I was in a lot of pain. So she's like, okay. So now I'm looking at her saying, all right, we're not going to be a patient here, okay? You are a little strange. We're going to go ahead and finish this up. I'm going to chit chat with you, and then I'm going to go find me a neurologist because you are acting crazy. And she comes over and she's like, okay, I want to do a physical exam, you know, walk in a straight line, you know. She wanted to listen to my heart, listen to my lungs, wanted to check my extremities and, you know, see if I could move my arms, move my legs. And I'm like, okay. Normal. It's a typical neurology exam. If you've ever been to a neurologist, they kind of do like an exam just to see where you are with your motor skills and etc. And so she sat down and she's like, so you work? I'm like, yep, just left work. She's like, so the medications, you know, can you tell me everything that you take? So I ran down the list of everything I was taking. And she was like, okay, what about this prescription? And she's just started picking apart each prescription. And again, I'm going, look, lady, I just got off of work. Not really sure where you're headed with this line of question about this medication, but it's in my chart, you know. You got to go through and read, you know, my documentation. And I said, have you had a chance to look at my charts? And she said, I have. And I looked at her and she looked at me. And I'm like, are you going to say anything? And this conversation, I was not prepared for. So as I said, the doctor was acting very strange. She sat down and she looked over at me and she said, I have to tell you this, you don't have MS. So the first thing I said was, what are you talking about? Again, she was acting strange. So now I'm like, oh, she don't even know what she's doing because she's telling me I don't have MS after 15 years. So I said, what would make you say I don't have MS? I've been treated for 15 years. She was like, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you don't. So I'm like, I've been seen by how many doctors? And they've all said I had MS. So let me say this, you guys. I did see the question of why you didn't get a second or a third opinion. I did. But the thing is, they were all neurologists in the same practice, except for 2. So I actually had 5 neurologists all say I had MS. And I had all 5 neurologists to prescribe medications from pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, they stood 10 toes in that I had MS. Not one person except for this lady. She went on to say, when I read your medical records, I said this poor girl will be dead in about a year. But when I looked at your MRIs, they didn't match. So I said, there's no way, because these doctors filled out paperwork for FMLA. They filled out paperwork for me to get Social Security. I mean, I had 2 brain surgeries. Like, huh? So you saying I don't have MS? She was like, no. All the medications that you were on were unwarranted. And I'm like, you want me to believe that for 15 years I was being used as a guinea pig and did not have MS? She said, you don't have MS. I'm like, well, how do you explain all the MS flares, which are documented from the hospital, from the emergency rooms, from all my visits to the office to get infusions? MS flares. She said, that is just language. And at this time, my stomach is flipping upside down. Final part of being undiagnosed after 15 years. And the beginning part of the Make It Right movement. Before I give you the final chapter, I would like to let you all know that I have signed copies of the DBA for Make It Right Foundation and the Make It Right movement. I told you guys, I am not gonna stop until we all get justice. I also reached out to the news stations in my town to see if anyone would give me the opportunity to announce this movement and give a brief explanation on what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And I was told, no, we try to stay away from stories like yours, which is fine, because guess what? There is no better journalist like the internet. So I am asking each and every last one of you to join my live on TikTok Sunday at 12 noon. I will get my own story out, and every chance I get, I'm going to hit the live button, and we are going to be the journalist. I don't need to sit on someone's couch to get my message across. Everything that God has for me is already lining up. In saying that, I would like to give you the final part. So I have seen where a lot of people have said, why didn't you get a first, a second, a third, a fourth opinion before going with the doctors? So the sad part to this is, I absolutely did. And this is what makes my story different. I had doctors who ordered MRIs at my request. Each time I went to a new neurologist, there were two things that I wanted: for them to review my medical records, to see the treatment I had already received, and to do their own MRI to see where the lesion had progressed or stayed the same on my brain. So I did that. And each time, each doctor did an MRI. They came back and said, yeah, it's getting bad. And they ordered new medication, or they would switch the pharmaceutical med I was on, plus add a few more, okay? And this was over the past 13 years. 5 neurologists, each doing their own MRI, each coming back and sitting down and saying, my God, we have to change your meds. I told you guys that when I got to the doctor's office for the new doctor, she was acting strange. After she had moved around the room for a bit, she sat down and she said, listen, I know you are having a hard time believing what I'm telling you, but you do not have MS, nor have you ever had MS. As you can imagine, now I am crying. And the question I begin to ask is, why me? What would make these doctors decide to do this to me? They didn't know me. Like, why? Why is everybody following along? And why, in the last 15 years, have none of the doctors done what you've done? Put the MRI next to the medical records to see that it wasn't lining up. And she said, doctors treat this practice as a cult. I want no parts in what they've done to you. I am taking you off all medications today. There are 2 medications that I need to wean you off of, and they should be done. in 2 months. I'm also going to order my own MRI to show you that from 2009 up until today, that there was no lesion. There is a pituitary gland that has remained the same size from 2009 up until the present day. But if you read the paperwork, they had your paperwork looking like you were going to be dead in a year. And I want no parts. I'm undiagnosing you. It's going to be hard because you're going to go through withdrawals, but unfortunately you'll have to follow your primary with concerns with that, because I can't bill your insurance. You don't have a neurological disease, which means you do not need a neurologist. So anything that you experience after I begin to take you off these meds, you will have to follow up with your primary. And I looked at her and I said, you want me to believe that each and every last doctor that I trusted, because it was so many that followed behind each other, that is why when I did get the opinion from the new neurologist, I believed it. Because one doctor lying, okay, but 5 or 6 doctors all standing on the same thing, until God sent this one lady on March the 28th, 2024, to say, I had to be sure before I told you this. So I had my colleagues review your records with me, because I didn't want to walk in here and not tell you what was accurate. So I know you probably have questions on what makes me right. Well, I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to order that MRI. I'm going to wean you off all this medication, and you will see that you will not die from MS. You can go and live your life. Imagine being dumped that in a 15-minute doctor appointment. I walked outside to my car, and my phone rung. It was my husband. And I was crying, and he kept saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? I said, give me a minute. I got to call you back. He kept saying, what's the matter? Tell me what's going on. I said, give me a minute. I'll call you right back. He said, hey, you're crying. What is going on? Tell me what's going on. I said, I have to call you back. And I hung that phone up. And I'm here to tell you, I worshiped God in that parking lot, because what man meant for evil, God meant for good. 15 and a half years, 2 brain surgeries, every neurologist lying to me in my face, lying on my medical charts, lying to the Medicaid, lying to Medicare, lying to the pharmaceutical company. But in all of that, God kept me alive to tell my story. And so guess what? I'm going to get justice. I'm going to fight. I'm not going to stop fighting. And I am asking you guys to please support me. You have been so great with the comments and the hearts and all the outpour of love so far. And I am so grateful. And I am asking each and every last one of you to please join my live on Sunday, because I am announcing my movement. I am taking this all the way to the White House. And I'm going to take you guys with me. So I'm not worried about a news station giving me airtime. I got all the airtime I need every time I press the live button. And with every last one of you behind me. And God going before us. So again, I thank you. I will keep you guys updated daily. And we will win. God has the final say. And he has already proven that by sparing my life and keeping me for 15 and a half years. And so I say again, support the movement. Bless the Cash App, bless the GoFundMe, be in the live, tap the screen, share the live on Sunday, and continue to follow this movement as I fight for myself and everyone else just like me. Stay blessed, you guys.
All right, y'all. This was very, very unfortunate. This is a very unfortunate situation. I'm sorry this happened to her. I'm glad they did catch it. You know, uh, I'm glad they did. The new doctor did catch this and you know, stop these treatments and stuff this lady was going through. You know, God bless her. God bless her family. God bless y'all. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully, you know, none of us or anybody else has to ever go through something like this. All right. I'm gonna put her social media link in the description below so you guys can follow her and follow her journey. And I wish her nothing but the best. All right. So this was very unfortunate, and like I say, sometimes you get, you know, doctors, they don't be liking to go against other doctors. Like, they don't like to go against what another doctor say, you know. But it's just unfortunate, man. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments below. 15 years is that's a shame, man. You know, like, I don't know what she could do, or, you know, but this is just fucking ridiculous, you know. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with me, man. Make sure y'all like the video, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one, okay? Peace.